Welterweights fighting for a roster spot coming up this weekend with 3-fight losing streaks apiece. We have the Dirty Bird, Tim Means, taking on Andrea Fialho out of Portugal. And when you look at it for dominance management, MMA's own Andrea Fialho, 3 straight losses, all of them by knockout.
I wish I could sign the loser. I don't have a fight promotion, but damn it if I did, they would be fighting for my title.
If Fialho loses, it's going to be Titan FC or Eagle FC. And if Tim Means loses...
I think he'd be okay in the PFL, honestly. He wouldn't win the $1 million, but I think he'd at least do okay enough to make the playoffs.
Yeah, he had that chance before, Matt, and he lost to Chris Curtis, and that was his PFL journey. But when you look at it for Andrea Fialho, he's coming into this one on a wave of whatever the opposite of success is.
When it goes bad, it goes bad.
Taking on Jake Matthews. Matthews was able to wobble him at the end of the first round. We get ourselves into the second round, and Matthews is able to unload. It was a left hook in the first round. It was a left hook in the second round.
He turned into one of the greatest fighters of all time in that second round.
Into a big-time flurry and a knockout blow. Fialho is next time out. He's taking on Muslim Salikov. You saw Fialho, he wasn't able to crowd with his boxing. Salikov was able to work in the kicks. He ends up getting that spinning back kick, TKO win. And then Fialho's last time out, Matt, went back, watched the Joaquin Buckley fight. Both guys are tentative. Buckley playing around on the outside with his kicks. Notice how I talk about kicks a lot with Andrea Fialho. And then in the second round, Fialho had all the defenses in the world in that one. Sometimes he can drop his hands at inopportune times. He didn't. He kept his hands up. But by the jeepers, did he ever eat a full-blown head kick against Joaquin Buckley?
Maybe not the fight to applaud his defense.
Landed one more shot just for good measure and then hopped up onto the cage and let out a noise that I can only describe as that Petr Yan pre-title fight. Ah! So when you do look at it, Matt, Andrea Fialho, 3-fight losing streak. I was over the moon hyped about Andrea Fialho coming into the UFC. And if you look at his last 2 wins, Cameron Van Camp, that one's a performance bonus, and Miguel Baeza, also performance bonus, though he did get rocked by a straight shot from Cameron Van Camp. He's taking on Tim Means, Matt. The last 3 fights equally as poor, though he has been submitted versus knocked out. He took on Kevin Holland. He worked in some of his wrestling, and then he got caught in a
I don't want to say I may have said I told you so. Kevin Holland's going to get that submission win.
He took on Max Griffin in that fight. I mean, Means working in the kicks, working in the body shots, and then in tight in the first. Griffin with a right. It drops Means, but a pretty close fight after that. And then the last time out for Tim Means against Alex Morono. Wins the first round, and in the second round, they're in tight. He lands a good shot against Morono, and then Morono pulls guillotine, and you know that Morono guillotine, especially when he readjusted and he was sitting up. It was in. Tim Means kind of gives him a pat.
Got him too.
They smile, they're hugging. Like, it was a shame to see it that way, but this is one of those weird fights where Andrea Fialho, I get it with the spinning back kick from Muslim Salikov, but we've seen his chin tested in the UFC. We saw it tested with Bellator. We saw the wrestling be a bit of an issue, the Chris Curtis fight and so on. You know that Stefan Seklic finish where Seklic is going for the takedown and Fialho says no and then finishes him. But by and large, Fialho's a decently well-rounded fighter. More boxing, less kicks. He throws his left hand 3 different ways. Jab, cut the cage, left hook, uppercut in the lead. But Tim Means, one of those weird fighters, is a southpaw to where he works the body to great effect. In his last 6 fights, 3 wins in a row, 3 losses in a row, 374 significant strikes, 125 of them to the body. That's good for exactly 33% of Tim Means shots being body shots. I just thought of it, Craig. Go ahead.
Tim Means is going to BKFC. He beat their king. Mike Perry's kind of a big deal right now, and only in the world of bare knuckle boxing. Tim Means beat the brakes off Mike Perry. That fight was fairly one-sided, and I don't think enough people remember it because Means is going downhill with his combinations, using the elbows in tight, and that's the thing about both these fighters. Both of them, I would say, are very much positive offensive strikers, right? When they are fighting the fight on their... What?
Yes.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like, when Fialho is able to land his power strikes, move out of the way in the pocket, and really be able to dictate his own pace and power, then I do think he is a very good fighter and can go out there and beat good opponents, too. The problem is, when he's backed up, he is a much lesser version of himself than when he's the guy moving forward, because when he is moving forward, he will throw much more variety than he will when he's moving backwards. He will have a tendency to just kind of, firm up and throw that one big power shot. And this is the thing, and you might be surprised, people out there might be heartbroken. I think Andre wins this fight. Now, I can make this video 45 minutes long if you want me to, because I know a good amount about these guys. But the issue is, Tim Means at this stage of his career does like to crowd the distance, right? Get into that tie clinch and use his dirty boxing, use those elbows. And he will fight on the outside too, don't get me wrong. But when the fight is going at the Dirty Bird's way, he's using his inside fighting, using his outside fighting, and really using the footwork too. But that's a style that means you're going to have to eat a couple big shots. And I know Means isn't getting put out completely in these recent fights, but he's also a fighter that, 39 years of old, being in the crazy fights that Tim Means has got into for the majority of his career, I don't trust his chin necessarily, even though Andre's the guy who has suffered TKO losses more recently, and this streak has been much more highlighted by them. I worry that Tim Means is just going to walk into big shot after big shot during this matchup, because he really does like that elbow range, and I think that's going to make him more susceptible to the big punch.
And Andre Fialho uppercut from either of his hands, and he throws them to ill effect once things get tight. But the thing that Fialho can struggle against, we saw that when you go back through and you watch that ex-MMA fight against James Vick. First round, Vick kicking distance, throwing a lot of stuff out there. And Fialho, like any great champion that they say, or like a Floyd Mayweather, Volkanovski, taking the first round
How dare you
to download the
Andre
game plan.
Fialho
And then the
Floyd
second round,
Mayweather.
you saw Fialho really just establishing things with that lead left hook, and then he was able to go out there and get the finish. But for Tim Means, again, wins in the first round against Alex Morono. That tricky outside striker, a lot of lateral movement, gets submitted. But the thing that I don't necessarily like about Means is, once things get into the phone booth, as we say, he leaves his hands out there, and either he is looking for that clinch or he just leaves them out there to defend, and his head's back here. And we did see him get hit by that straight shot from Max Griffin. Drop. Really good resolve. Second round, third round. Again, split decision win for Griffin. Most had seen that fight for Griffin, and I did as well on the rewatch.
But even go back to the Nico Price fight. I know he lost that fight. I think they announced it was like an ankle injury because the way he fell from the knockdown did break his ankle. But Nico Price up against the cage, Tim Means advancing, steps off to the side, lays a right hook through the guard, and immediately crumbles Tim Means. Just, he is such an aggressive fighter that it does put him in the face of danger. And in a matchup like this, not that I'm sold on Andre anymore, definitely not as the top contender, but he has the type of game plan that can make that pay.
I mean, we're talking about a guy that came into the UFC in 2012. He's 14-12 with a no contest in the UFC.
It's been a great run.
The knockdown ratio, 9-4 to 4 against. Performance bonuses over Diego Lima and John Howard. Names of yesteryear, but one still competing, and one...
He's a Hall of Famer in my heart.
Was in Creed 3, Diego Lima. There's your fun fact to bring to B-dubs to your buds.
Inspiring.
Andrea Fialho, about a 2-1 favorite in the matchup. We have a look at the Tapology vote. Surprised us there to you. I'm not surprised by anything anymore. I'm going to say over-under 80% Fialho.
I'll say under.
You're going to say under slightly. 755 total votes. 76% Fialho. 80% by knockout. For the 24% that I Means. 44% by decision. 43% by knockout. The last Means win was about 2 years ago over Nicholas Dalby. You can bump up things for both these guys in these streaks, but it does feel like the loser goes home at the end. Sad.
Why are you trying to bum me out like that, Craig? I like both these guys. I like watching them fight. They're in fun fights. Like, and they both are in that Daniel Lacerda mode, right? Like, even when Means or Andre loses, like, is the fight boring? No, they're probably either getting finished or finishing someone. That sounded kind of dirty. I don't have Tim Means, and I really want it to. It would have made me feel a lot better as a human, but I just think he's going to walk into a lot of big power shots in this matchup. And at 31 years old, maybe he could eat a couple of those and then ultimately get the win. I just don't think he's going to be able to at this stage of his career.
Well, if we see Fialho like we saw him his last time out against Joaquin Buckley, where he's doing nothing, absolutely
but I
nothing.
think Andre would knock out Tim Means in the first round too.
Means is going to bring a lot to him, so we'll see how Fialho is able to turn out with that. I'm going to go against my better judgment and go with Andrea Fialho in the matchup, because the more I watch the tape with the body work and the kicks of Tim Means and the southpaw nature of the fight, I can see it causing the Portuguese fighter a lot of problems. So we're both going with Portugal's Andrea Fialho. I'm very nervous for both of these two guys, if you couldn't tell. Some big-time fights in this card, Matt. Co-main event of the evening, featherweight division. Thug Nasty taking on 50K Ige. Keep it locked in with Fight Night Picks, we always say. Let's get into it.